Hi, welcome back to the second season of the Daily Record High School Football Insider Video Edition. I'm Daily Record Sports Editor Aaron Dorksen, along with sports writer Mike Plant. Mike, thanks for joining me for another season.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Aaron. Actually, I'd like to thank our audience out there who has made us the highest rated television show in Daily Record history. We were renewed for season number 2. But before we talk about that, Aaron, and of course we have our football preview all done and ready to come out on the newsstands here as we tape this tomorrow. Last year we were fortunate enough to have a 15-week run of our show because of the success of the Norwayne Bobcats, and I think we have to touch on what an exciting trip that was for everyone.
Well, Norwayne defeated Kenton 48-42 in the state championship game for Division IV. It was just the second state title ever for one of our area teams. Of course, area fans know Orville won it in '98. Even if it wasn't an area team, it would have been unbelievable. People would remember. But the fact it was Norwayne, a local team, and maybe a Cinderella story, kind of, it's only their third playoff trip, it'll be talked about for generations to come.
Yeah, and the funny part of it is in talking to Joe Harbor, Norwayne's head coach, believe it or not, he actually thinks the Bobcats could be just as good, if not better, this year than they were a year ago. Of course, they'll miss everything Adam Wallace, along with some other key performers, some All-Ohioans even, but you talk about a team with a host of returning lettermen, starting with running back, defensive end John Zimmerly, who rushed for over 1,000 yards and was a first-team All-Ohioan as a defensive end and is a real force. I had a chance on photo day out there to get a look up close at Caleb Harris, who was the breakout star of last year's playoff run. And he's up to about 200 pounds now with some big arms on him and looks like he's ready to have a great season. Got Brady Berger back, who had a dozen touchdown catches. I mean, the skill positions, Aaron, at Norwayne, they've got so many that they've got almost 2 sets of first-line guys, talking about Richie Smith, Mitch Canerium, who missed the playoff run, and 4 out of their 5 offensive linemen back. So I would think that Norwayne is the heavy favorite going into the WCAL.
Yeah, all eyes are going to be on Joe Dreyer, the junior quarterback, but he's going to be a different player than Adam Wallace, but I think he's an outstanding player from what we hear, throws the ball well, maybe won't run quite as much, but yeah, with all those things going for Norwayne, we probably spent as little time picking the favorite. I mean, everyone agreed on our staff that they were the favorite. Then we kind of have 4 teams below them that we feel could maybe be in any order. And that's not saying there couldn't be an upset of Norwayne down the road.
Right.
But for ranking the preseason teams, we kind of had Hillsdale, Northwestern, Smithville, and Waynedale. Kind of grouped them really closely together. And then we kind of felt like 3 teams, which we feel will all be improved, but it's going to be tough for them to move into that top 5 because the top 5 are so good. You have Dalton, Rittman, and Chippewa, but I was out at Rittman, for instance. They're improved, better numbers and stuff, so it should be a good all-around year in the Wayne County League.
Right, and even Hillsdale, I think we picked them to finish second this year. It's a real testament to what Tom Williams and his staff have built out there, because they lost a ton of talent, but they have a lot of holes, but he really thinks that they have players ready to step in and fill those. And in big 6'6", 235-pound junior Ryan B is, I look for him to be a two-way terror this year. A couple of other teams that are in that upper echelon, you mentioned Northwestern, Smithville, and Waynedale. I think all are very talented in their skilled positions. It's a matter of finding linemen and, of course, depth. I mean, you're talking Northwestern, Malachi Noletti, quarterback, running back Tyler Smith was a 1,000-yard rusher. A relay quartet almost of including Alex Bates, Tolan Shane, and Tyler Buss at Smithville, and then Waynedale with Josh Strasbaugh, and moving Brendan Stanley from quarterback to running back gives them a pretty good 1-2 punch.
Well, that's a quick look at our outlook for the Wayne County Athletic League. We'll be back after a break and talk about the Ohio Cardinal Conference. Welcome back to the Daily Record High School Football Insider. We're holding up a copy of our football preview that's on newsstands Thursday. Football Factories. Kind of not only are we previewing the teams, but we're giving a little insight in some of the factories in the communities and some of the correlations that go along between the hard work at factories and a successful team. So hopefully readers enjoy it. One of the things we have in this edition is an OCC rankings of the preseason, Mike. To me, this is the 10th year of the OCC, and this is by far the most even it's been, top to bottom. I mean, it's even the 7th and 8th teams. You had to list somebody there, have a good amount back. But based on everything that West Holmes has back, 7 starters on offense, 10 on defense. This is a class they've been pointing at for a long time. They even handed last year's league champ Ashland its only loss. We went ahead and ranked West Holmes first. They have the quarterback, Gabe Snyder, who's a Division I baseball recruit. He's 6'5". Brock McCauley's going to Kent State, a big guy, a tight end lineman. You have Keaton Lepla, Garrett Mackey, Lane Perrone, Brady Arnold, just a lot of standouts, and the list goes on and on. We put Ashland as our second-ranked team. A lot of that's out of respect because they have been able to do it even when they lose big classes. They only have 2 starters back on offense. They do have 8 on defense, but they've won 4 of the last 6 league titles. Put Mansfield Senior third. A lot of people thought they'd dominate the league when it was started 10 years ago. They still have not won a league title. They haven't even been in the playoffs. They were coming off 2 playoff trips when the league started. Orville has its greenest team they've had under Coach Duvall. We have them 4th. They only have 2 starters back on offense, 4 on defense. They have the new turf, which is really exciting. It was great to see that, how nice that is. Worcester, new coach Doug Haas. They don't have a lot back either. 3 starters on offense, 4 on defense. Mike, I know you're out at Worcester. What were your impressions of their team?
Yeah, and that's kind of the interesting thing about Worcester, that I think the perception out there is that they were so young last year that they do have a lot of talent back. They are talented, but as far as starters, there's not that many. I know in talking to Coach Doug Haas, who of course will be taking over the Generals program this year, he and his staff are really excited about the type of athletes they're going to be able to coach this year. We're talking about wide receivers running 4.40s in James Preston and Darian Owens. A tight end / he's more of a hybrid kid. Today I was at a luncheon that Doug spoke at and saw a little bit of film. Charles Kearney, a good 6'5", 220-pound target who can really run also. And one player that we've all been excited to see come up through and get ready will be making his varsity debut Friday night against Akron Garfield. Of course, that's 6'5" Cameron Doherty, who replaces his brother Devin as the Generals quarterback. Cameron battled some injury problems last year during football season, but really made an impact on the Worcester varsity in both basketball and in baseball. So he's, of course, there's been a lot of ballyhoo about him, but seeing him in those other sports, you can believe the hype that kid's that good of an athlete. Up front, of course, like with most schools, squads, it's always important to how good your offensive and defensive lines are. Grant Stokes will be a rare 4-year starter for the Generals on the line. He's a good, solid kid to build around. They have pretty good size up front. Of course, Aaron, the big problem for Worcester in the last few years anyway has been stopping the opposition from scoring. Coach Haas is going to serve as his own defensive coordinator, so he thinks they're going to make some improvements in that regard as well. In the Principals Athletic Conference, speaking of talking to coaches and talking to Triway coach Tony Lee, I know that the Titans had that start last year where they were 0-8. Had so much difficulty scoring. Put together a little modest 2-game winning streak to end the season, send the seniors out in the right way, and Tony said it carried over some into the momentum into the off season. Triway will have a young group of skilled players, but a pretty darn good one, including sophomore quarterback Parker Carmichael, who took over the reins early last year, took his lumps a little bit, but ended up having a pretty solid season through 9 touchdown passes and only 13 interceptions, which for a freshman isn't bad. And he'll be throwing to a group of guys, Aaron, that rival anybody but Norway, I would think, in the area. And 6'5" Kyle Kearney, junior Lane Drake, and one kid that Tony really raved about is 5'7" Jordan Miller, who is not very big, but Tony called him a playmaker and says he can really be dynamic as they look to get that run and gun or gun and fun, whatever, however Tony terms it, that offense back in high gear this year.
Yep. Triway opens up with West Holmes, and then week 2 they'll be at Orville for that first game ever on that new artificial turf I mentioned. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a couple of the Orville standouts. We kind of went by that, but Kyle Lichty's going to be back for his 3rd year playing quarterback. They're also going to work in sophomore Bryce Short regularly, as try to use a 2-quarterback system, so see how that goes. Some other standouts are Nick Graber and B.J. Johnson, and juniors Trevor Summers and Joel Zook. So that gives you maybe a quick look at Orville. Mike, also Tuslaw, Loudonville, Cloverleaf in our coverage area. There's new coaches at 2 of those 3 schools. What do you think about those schools?
Well, I know Tuslaw, Nate Held over there has established himself in his program as being pretty consistent from year to year, and he has some high hopes this year. Loudonville has a much celebrated class. I believe they're sophomores or juniors this year coming back that they think are going to restore some of that old Redbird tradition. And Cloverleaf, as an old friend of ours, Big Bob Lake, has taken over the reins with Doug Haas coming to Worcester. So Bob has returned as the head coach at Cloverleaf, and he's always a sunny, optimistic guy. So he's, in talking to our reporters, he's feeling pretty good about the Colts, and they have first-team All-Ohio wide receiver Robbie Buckwald leading their offense.
So we'll be back and take a quick look at this week's games and wrap up this week's show.
Welcome back to the Daily Records High School Football Insider, our debut edition. Alongside sports editor Aaron Dorksen, I'm sports writer Mike Plant. And the games were getting close to kickoff. It doesn't seem possible the summer went by that fast, but week 1 has some pretty intriguing matchups. You've got, right off the top, you've got Chippewa trying to end its 23-game losing streak and give head coach Kevin Wolf his first career victory. The Chips will travel to Norton. Dalton will be making the short trip to Sugar Creek, which to continue what's turned into a nice little rivalry with Garraway over the years. One big kind of an intersectional matchup, if you will, that you don't see very often. Hillsdale will be going to Jim France Stadium to take on Manchester in what shapes up to be a pretty good game. Northwestern will go into Ashland County and take on Crestview. The defending Division IV state champion Norway Bobcats will head north and take on Wellington. Danville will make the trip up and open up their season at Rittman. And in the game I'm covering Friday night, which I'm anxious to see, the Loudonville Redbirds will be coming up to take on the Smithville Smithies for the first time in 35 seasons. Smithville will be led by a new head coach and Brent Bezanson.
And continue with the list of games, Waynedale goes over to Tusky Valley. Cloverleaf visits Medina Buckeye. Orville goes over to Canal Fulton to take on Northwest. That's always an interesting matchup, 2 pretty good programs. West Holmes will be at Triway. Tuslaw will visit St. Thomas Aquinas. And the game I'm covering, Akron Garfield, will be at Worcester for the Doug Haas era to open up. 2 maybe nearby games with some interest. Wadsworth goes to Ashland, and East Canton at Timken.
East Canton-Timken is a matchup we've all been looking forward to. Before we go, I'd just like to send a personal message out to my younger brother Jeff, who's been battling some health issues recently. He's in the hospital over in Canton at Altman. When he was at Worcester Community Hospital last week, Aaron, he got his first ever laptop computer. So my sister was going to make sure he knew how to work it so he could tune in and watch this. So Jeff, when you're watching this, keep fighting and keep getting better. Now all that's left is the opening kickoff, which everyone will be going to their games Friday night, and you can read about all of them in the Saturday Daily Record. And please join us again next week for the Daily Record High School Football Insider.